Broadcasting live from the Capitol OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on the day after the Breeders' Cup. Lots of great action Friday and Saturday. We'll be talking about that and recapping things. We'll be joined by Steve Byk a little bit later on, who was live out there all week long with the radio show. We'll get some of his thoughts live from Southern California. But as we normally do on Sunday, talk to our friend Tony Calo about the upcoming couple of days at Finger Lakes, 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And this Monday and Tuesday, wrapping up the stake schedule. A couple of little stakes on Monday and Tuesday. We'll hit on the Monday version with Tony. Tony, good morning.
Morning, Seth. How are you, pal?
Very good. Happy to have you on board. And that before we talk Finger Lakes, let's get your thoughts on the Breeders' Cup. I thought it was the Breeders' Cup didn't have maybe the firepower. The Classic didn't have the firepower maybe you were hoping for. But I think a lot of the storylines played out. I think there was some great finishes. On the human side of things, the New York contingent seemed to do very well. Bill Mott, the nice win by Johnny Velasquez on Fierceness for Pletcher and Rapoli was a nice throwback win for that team. And so I think there was a lot of fun over the 2 days. What were your thoughts overall on the Breeders' Cup?
Yeah, my thoughts were how Fierceness ruined my Friday. Cost me and my boys the pick five. Oof. But what are you going to do? Thought Mott's filly looked really, really good winning the Justify filly. What an impact Justify had on the whole weekend. It seemed like he was really making a lot of noise. Yesterday, like you said, some great storylines. Cody's Wish continues. What a heck of a race that was, just getting up. Super impressed with that. The Great Britain filly in Spiral. Yeah. In the filly at Mare Turf. What a turn of foot she displayed. Goodnight Olive probably wrapped up her championship. Idiomatic, the same thing said for her. Great weekend. And then, of course, with Dutro. Unbelievable with White Abario to come and win that classic. What a great accomplishment for Mr. Dutro.
I had White Abario right underneath in the mix. I took a shot with Zandon, who didn't show up. But I wasn't quite sure, laying off from the Whitney, 1.8 to 1.25 miles. But he looked so good in that Whitney. I had him right underneath, and he lived up to it. The reports this week were good, kind of lived up to it. So, yeah, it was nice.
My friend David, Steve and I, we were watching a podcast on Friday, and boy, he just exuded a lot of confidence. It was pretty scary how confident he was about his chances.
Yeah, it was a nice weekend, and that helped cap things off, certainly White Abario. And we will see going forward Eclipse Awards and whatnot. I think a number of them were probably put in the bag. I think Horse of the Year maybe a little bit Cody's Wish, it may start to get a little buzz for Horse of the Year, I would have to think, off of his year, and it's certainly a great story and whatnot. So we'll see how that all plays out. All right, as noted, a couple of stakes races coming up out at Finger Lakes on Monday and Tuesday. Oh, and also a new post time now with the change in the clocks. New post time coming up at the Finger Lakes for the next few weeks.
Yeah, it gets really dark here pretty early, so we've got to start at 12:15 now for the final 9 days of the season, and I think that last race goes off close to around 3:30. It can get pretty dark here pretty early in the fall, that's for sure.
I'm all for permanent daylight savings. They keep talking about it. Put me down for that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like rolling the clock back. That's rolling the clock back. That's for sure. I'm on board with you there.
No, I get done at the end of the handicapping show during the week, and you walk out, and it's already dark, and I can't wait for a couple of months to go by for that to change. But it is what it is. You're not the only venue. Other venues change up now too, so folks should be aware of that. All right, tomorrow, a couple of, as I say, nice stakes. Tuesday it'll be the Tin Cup Chalice, but tomorrow the fourth race is the She's a Stone Cold Fox. $40,000 up for grabs for the 2-year-old fillies going 6 furlongs. Field of 6 scheduled in here, and the favorite looks legit, Sweet Brown Sugar, coming off a nice debut win with a number that matches up very well with this bunch. But how did you see the She's a Stone Cold Fox?
Yeah, I'm really high on the Sweet Brown Sugar, no question about it. I know the Richie Rich Racing Stable guys, great guys. Nick Hines does a lot of his picking of the horses out at the Ocala sales for. I don't know how to pronounce Rick's last name, Rick lives out down in Tampa, and shame on me for not knowing how to even say his name, being somewhat of being a friend. Pretty bad. I mean, I just always call him the Richie Rich. That's all. So, but this filly really looks the part. She came onto the racetrack, good size to her. They paid a fair number for $32,000, and boy, she leveled out. Jeremiah Flores, he kind of gave her a little tap of the whip around in between the 8th and the 16th, and she just accelerated, galloped out like a monster. 1 minute and 6 was legit. The boys came back in the nightcap and ran 107 and 2. Ooh. So that tells you how impressive Sweet Brown Sugar was winning her debut run.
Short price, but she may just be one of those horses that's worth taking a look at as the season ends, and in a month, a little more than a month or so, the calendar changes and they become 3-year-olds. She might be a nice little New York-bred 3-year-old filly based out at the Finger Lakes to keep our eyes on.
I sure hope so, and I'm glad to see Richie Rich with Paul Barrow. Paul's a great guy, and I think they've got a good one here.
7th race tomorrow, bottom level conditional claimers going 8.5 furlongs, and I was kind of looking over the field of 7 in here. This one's a pretty evenly matched bunch. I could probably make some kind of a case for just about everybody in here. What did you see in race number 7?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. You look at the field from top to bottom; they're real contentious. I've always been high on Lucky Manny, and I liked him on the 26th of September, and he did not disappoint. He gets a better post this afternoon. I love his spacing. No works in between, but I don't think Jim puts a lot of work into his horses once they get going, and he'll be renewing that rivalry with Runabout and the set of Easy Shot look good winning. It's a cool race, but I'm going to give Lucky Manny my top pick.
All right. In the 8th race, I can't disagree with the morning line favorite 8-5 because has that angle I like. It's a little venue move that could be beneficial to the Finger Lakes. 4 starts back, was at the Finger Lakes, won nicely, subsequently Parks, Aqueduct, and Keeneland. Now, did have a big layoff, and the Keeneland start was a little bit disappointing, so I suppose there's a question mark there if you want to take a little shot against me, Trey Porciento, if I had that correctly. But I thought one that's interesting to me off the last race is Bowing Snowman, 8-1 on the morning line, the number 5 horse. How did you see the 8th?
Well, I looked at the favorite, and I believe we have to hit the F, meet Trey Porciento. I called him the Trey. I went meet Trey when he won 4 back, and I quickly was corrected by one of our Puerto Rican jockey agents, Mr. Calo. That's not a French horse. That's a Latino. That's Trey. You meet Trey Porciento. Interesting that Jeff takes this horse to Keeneland and protects him, utilizes the waiver, running him for the 20, which he last ran with in late January. Doesn't run much, and comes back and aggressively places him in for the 11. I kind of look at that as a positive because Jeff just loves to jam. And if he didn't like this horse, he'd probably have him in for $5,000. So he's obviously the horse to beat. I think we get a little bit of pace. Cape Cod Gem is going to legitimize pace in any race he's in. All you got to do is look at his running lines, how many firsts are out there in the first part of his past performance running lines in all of his races. So he's fast, and then you throw in Bowing Snowman and Drossel Diem. How about the bottom horse? Can't beat me. Paul Barrow's right in the midst of our top training title. He's trying to upset Chris Engelhard, and I think he actually might be in front of him. It's close. I saw that he was 1 behind after Halloween, and I think he had a couple the other day. So very, very close. And if him being in the midst of trying to become our top trainer, which would be a great accomplishment for Paul, why wouldn't he just jam him in for 5? So for him to put him in for 11, I take that as another vote of confidence. And he's got great company lines. I see Horn of Plenty. I see Dates Freedom, Honor Among Men. There's Trelad, Walrallo, and Civil Service. Trelad and Walrallo have already won the 2nd state bred. Walrallo just won the 3rd state bred the other day, defeating Trelad. Civil Service is a nice horse. He's going to get legitimate pace to chase, and I think he's going to be rolling through the lane. He's going to be my top pick trying to beat that Chilean meet Trace Porciento.
Well, you compelled me to pull up the Equibase stats as you were talking there, and with a couple weeks left in the meet, it's tied. Paul Barrow and Chris Engelhard. They have 52 apiece.
What's funny is you talk to both of them, and they downplay it. Because I talked to Paul, And he's like, Chris is going to be coming at me with everything he has. So then I see Chris like a couple days later. I'm like, hey, Paul tells me you're going to be really coming at him hard. He's like, oh, Paul's a cinch. So I just don't have the stock to be coming at him. So I tell you what, I try to stay away from poker games with these guys. That's for sure. I'll stick to my 25 cent, 50 cent online stuff. I'm not playing with the big boys.
That makes the last couple of weeks kind of fun to watch, though, between those two. They go into it all tied up. In closing day, the 22nd as I look here. So, yeah.
Yep, day before Thanksgiving. And Anthony Ferraro's right there. And what a jockey's race we have between Diego and Toa. That's going to come down to the end also.
Yeah, so that should be fun as we head towards the end of the season up there again with the modified post time a little bit earlier as well. Tony, as always, appreciate the visit. Good luck over the next few days. Nice stakes action again. Always like weekday stakes, and there's a couple of them coming up Monday and Tuesday at the Finger Lakes. Appreciate the visit. We'll talk again.
Thanks for having me, Seth. Have a good day.
Appreciate it. All right, we will take a break. When we come back, live from Southern California, again, he's been out there doing the radio show this past week, covering the lead up to the Breeders' Cup. And then, of course, he was out there for the past couple of days. So we'll be joined by Steve Byk right after this. Stay tuned.
No matter where in the world you are, the excitement of wagering on horse racing is just a click away. You'll get live streaming, past performances, race replays, our virtual tote board, analysis and selections from professional handicappers, a simple, safe, and secure wagering platform, and best of all, you get track prices. CapitalOTBBet.com. Bet any place, anytime at CapitalOTBBet.com. And be sure to download our new mobile app from the iTunes Store or Google Play.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Sunday morning. As noted earlier, the day after a couple of nice days of action out at Santa Anita with the Breeders' Cup. And as always, boots on the ground. Steve Byk out there doing the radio show all week long. So got to reach out and get some firsthand accounts of the action over the past couple of days. Steve, good morning.
Seth, good morning. Good morning, Capital District.
And I have to ask, on the when I was talking to you on the radio show, you thought you may be at the flea market. Are you at the flea market this morning?
No, it's next week actually. Because I haven't been able to go the last couple of maybe the last 3-4 years, and I guess they've moved it from the first weekend of the month to the second.
All right, let's get to a Breeders' Cup action. And I'll just, before we talk specific races, just give me a little overview. We've talked to some folks out there over the past few days, and, just watching, and I have to admit, I've never been to Santa Anita, but you look at the setting and the backdrop, and had Tim Wilkin on yesterday and pulled a couple of pictures that he had tweeted out of the sunrise in the morning. And it seems like there's a consensus that Santa Anita just does a great job, and not that they should be the permanent home, but they're in the rotation a number of times, and deservedly so. And it seems like everybody is very pleased when Santa Anita hosts the Breeders' Cup. Looked like it was the same situation this weekend.
Well, in fact, Santa Anita came very close to making a 10-year deal going back to about, 2008 or 2009 when there was that period where the Breeders' Cup basically was making deals to stay in venues 2 years in a row. And when Satish Sanan used to have that regular visit with me, and he was on the Breeders' Cup board, they came very close to a 10-year, semi-permanent home for Santa Anita. And I spent the weekend with Lee Einsteidler with Casa Creed, and Lee said, "Why don't they have it here every year?" And the idea is that it's an international. When I say international, that includes Canada, which I'll come back to. There's a lot of positives about being there. It's a in terms of a venue that has got the right spaces to accommodate different budgets. There's so many fabulous rooms, and there's the backside behind the building, and if they needed to use the infield at any point, they've got the infield. I mean, it's really a venue that is so spectacular, and with the San Gabriel Mountains as the backdrop, it's a remarkable setting. People have heard me say for years, and to me, it reminds me of a cruise ship. Essentially, the size of it and sort of a graciousness to it. It's a special place, and there's some unique factors. I mean, I wish we had used the downhill turf course for the turf sprint. They're all afraid of the crossover from the grass to the dirt back to the grass. In fact, those that were watching the turf race yesterday, more like Goddess had some trouble crossing over the grass when they came down. They come down the hill partly for the 1.5 mile race. So there's some unique features to it, and it's a fabulous spot. And nobody would object really if they did make it a permanent home. But that said, I happened to sit next to Jim Lawson all weekend, the president of Woodbine. They'd like to get a Breeders' Cup back up there, and there's a real chance that happens soon. So, wherever it is, it's a special industry-wide gathering that is always satisfying. There's certain frustrations I'm sure that horse players have. Not everybody it's not easy to win on these 2 days a lot of times, but you see everybody that loves the game in one place like that, and it makes for a great few days.
I will note, and I would assume you'll hit on this on the radio show in one form or another. You say it hard to hit. And I was out here in the race book yesterday afternoon, and people kept coming up and saying, "Man, it's chalky." And it was kind of, for the most part, a very chalky day. But I pulled up the leaderboard from the BCBC, not for a gentleman named Sean Borman, who winds up winning the BCBC with $231,000. Put $16,000 on the last exacta, Elite Power over Gunite, and pulled $128,000 off of that. Not a bad day for Mr. Borman. With the prize money added, gets well over $500,000 in the BCBC yesterday.
Well, and Sean Borman's a very savvy player and a big-time contest player. Very sharp. And, I mean, the chalkiness is going to certainly be a topic. When you have as many returning winners as we had, and returning, horses coming back, and if they're successful, it's going to be chalky. There's nothing you can do about stopping, Cody's Wish, but let's also acknowledge if National Treasure if National Treasure is able to get his nose in front, that's a significant price swing right there. Obviously, Goodnight Olive, Goodnight Olive and Elite Power were dominant winners of their two sprints, and surprisingly so. And Goodnight Olive, in the At the Races betting companion we've produced, one side note that I really had not realized: the number of fillies and mares that have tried to repeat. It is a rarity, actually. Going into yesterday, only Groupie Doll had repeated, and there were another 7 filly and mare sprint winners that tried to repeat and failed. So when you have returning winners and they win and they're successful, it's going to make those races short. And so you had a little bit of that, and then you had horses like Auguste Rodin and Inspiral winning, and they were the logical Europeans. So what can you say?
Yeah.
Light of Barrio coming in, the same thing. Light of Barrio. It's not like this was. It's not like this was a surprise. I guess I picked Light of Barrio. If he ran back to the Whitney, he was going to win. I will say this though, Seth, as it happened. Some of those favorites, you got decent prices on.
Absolutely.
Actually.
Yeah.
How about Inspiral after the race? If you knew you were going to get $7 on the filly and mare turf winner, you'd bet it all day, and you'd hammer it. You'd hammer it hard. There was also, I think, a Master of Seas. I didn't like Master of Seas, but paid $8.60. So you could key off of, that's a decent number. So was Auguste Rodin was $7. Nothing wrong with those numbers. It was funny when you look now at the triples and the supers. That ends up being, the places where you needed to get lucky and needed to feather in the right prices underneath. And people are. I see a lot of people grousing about this overnight, and I have not dug in too deep to the postscript stuff. But I don't think this was entirely shocking or unusual in terms of Breeders' Cup results. I probably have to go back and look at sets of charts to see what was a similar scenario. But I mean, the top horses. Don't we want Andy Serling always says that, don't we want the best horses to succeed? And that's what happened pretty much for the most part. Even No Balls, who was the best price for Larry Ravelli in the turf sprint, even No Balls happened to be 12-1, but was a horse that everybody talked about all week. I was a little surprised. Lee Einsiedler and I banged No Balls on the nose. We just bet him to win. Because that price and actually had a nice weekend operating like that both days. Rather than get crazy, just were sort of watching the board and betting a couple of horses on the nose to win, and came away doing well. I couldn't put any multi-race tickets successfully in, a couple of little ones, but this was the kind of day where you had to be a bit of an assassin and key off favorites and the right short price horses and build successful tickets. And there's got to be plenty of players that we're going to hear stories the next several days of success.
Well, and going back to that BC, I kind of had the leaderboard up during the afternoon. I was curious to watch, and a lot of those guys were just towards the end of the day hammering favorites and taking that $7 and moving forward, or putting together doubles with a couple of logical horses that paid okay. Yeah, so they made that work. All right, let's talk specifics now, and we'll start with the Breeders' Cup Classic and then go to the end of the day and kind of work our way backwards. But let's start with the highlight, and we'll watch the entire race here. White of Barrio went off as the favorite, which I thought was kind of logical. I wasn't quite buying into the morning line favorite of Arabian Night. Did go off as the second choice at 3-1 Arabian Night. But at 5-2, White of Barrio, the number 3 horse, Derma Sotogaki, the number 5, gets up for second. Proxy third. Arabian Night does wind up fourth in here. I took a pop with Zandon. Zandon's going to be the number 2 horse on your screen. On the turn, I could see that wasn't going to pan out. But White Abarrio, Mike, I put White Abarrio right underneath, but I said as I handicapped for the various spots that off since the Whitney, 1.8 miles to 1.25 miles, had to answer those questions, but just looked so good in the Whitney. I wasn't going to have him much further down the mix than that second, and he followed up with a huge performance after the big win in the Whitney. Rick Dutrow said he was headed right out to California as soon as the barns opened out there. He's been out there, reported to be working well, had some shoe problems, I guess, but man, White Abarrio looked great yesterday. Your thoughts on the Classic?
Well, it was an easy handicapping chore. If White Abarrio ran back to the Whitney, he was going to win. Anything close to that Whitney was going to win. And then when you saw him preparing out here, it became obvious he was coming into the race well. The hoof issue. Dutrow reached for the ace barrier. Ian McKinley, who's one of the best to ever do it. They got past that. There are some storylines here. I guess I ruffled some feathers by complimenting and praising Rick Dutrow last night when I put up my video of the stretch run. Dutrow's work with this horse, it was brilliant. He knew that the Whitney was too big of an effort to then run another race in between it and this spot. And he masterfully brought him up to this race. At the same time, you better believe that they were bending over backwards. This crew of veterinarians that were trying to scratch any horse that didn't look absolutely picture perfect. And horses are funny animals. They've got a whole bunch of different ways of going, and veterinarians that have never seen horses before, vets that are looking at a horse for the first time, they don't know how that horse goes. That horse may have, as they say, a hitch in the get along, and they say, "Oh, that horse is off on the right front." No, he's not. No, he's not. That's how he goes. There's going to be stories. There's going to be discussions this week. I'll get on every trainer who remains furious, including Aidan O'Brien.
Well, I was taking a pop with Bolshoi Ballet, so I was very disappointed. It sounded like he was in that kind of camp of the vets looked at him, and the folks behind the horse were kind of like, yeah, he's in good form.
Well, wait till you hear. Larry Ravelli will be on tomorrow, who had, not only, of course, does he win with no ball, but he had one-timer who he shipped out there expecting and hoping to get in. He then draws in basically to the race. He started as an AE and then gets in, and then they scratch him. And Ravelli literally went berserk on them. And so did, when somebody like Patricia Harrington lashes out, you know that they're overstepping their bounds. The other day, they were trying to find a way to scratch White Abarrio, and you can make conspiratorial allegations and suggest that either A, they were just doing their job, or B, they didn't want Rick Dutrow in position to win that race. But this horse was just absolutely perfect. Went out there, got the tremendous ride from Murad Ortiz, who obviously had a terrific cup. And the bottom line is here, Dutrow is fully back, is fully in flight. They took a ridiculous amount of his career away from him for really no legitimate reason. They could have, if they wanted to send a message, you suspend a guy 6 months, suspend a guy a year. But they took a decade of the guy's livelihood and the only thing he knows or cares about. And so this is a tremendous win, for someone who everybody acknowledges. I had some idiot on Twitter saying, "Oh, it's a slap in the face of honest horsemen." Any horseman that works alongside Rick Dutrow, who's ever been in the shed row with him or worked across from him, will tell you what a tremendous horseman he is. Graham Motion out there praising and congratulating him. Bill Mott out there congratulating him. So the stupidity and the vitriol directed at Dutrow is just grotesque. And it's a litmus test for people that know nothing. I could not be more happy for him, for those brothers that bought this horse. This is a victory for people that spend small money on horses, a $35,000 purchase. We should mention, Sappy Joseph did a terrific job with this horse, too. I mean, the people do remember he won the Florida Derby last year. I love the people saying, oh, this horse is a mirage. A mirage? What are you talking about?
And for folks who are new to the game, since it was a 10-year suspension, and a lot of folks I'm sure have jumped in since, they might not be aware. And as you say, you can argue that he deserved something, but he got caught up in a time and a place that just worked totally against him. And the 10 years was just, at the time and now in hindsight as well, it was absurd. It was just, it was the time that people were pointing the finger at him. And he had a personality that worked against him, unfortunately. But yeah, for folks who are new to the game, if you go back and you really look into it, the 10 years was kind of a totally crazy penalty.
Well, and then you've got people that are distorting the facts. I had some idiot say he had 72 violations for wind sprawl. You want to talk about just completely, and I suppose it's the internet. I don't know why I would even take anything seriously, but people see it. For people that don't understand, for starters, steroids were in full use and fully legal in the game. Not only were they fully legal, 70% of the horses in competition were on steroids. 70%. And in fact, it's a distortion to even bring that up because, in fact, the industry owes Rick Dutrow a thank you, because when he included that reference about Big Brown in a press conference about him, getting his treatment of wind sprawl, it actually kind of increased the awareness around the game to saying, human sports are pushing steroids out. Why don't we do it too? And within 2 years, every jurisdiction had outlawed active steroid use. So the industry actually owes Rick a thank you on that topic. Then let's talk about the 64, at that time, the 64 violations. Because I've got them recorded in a file in my office. 55 of them, 55 were violations for failure to have full papers filed in the racing office and for smoking on the shed row. 55 of the 64. The rest were various, overages, and you had that incident with the, trying to hide the workout at Monmouth. That you want to criticize Rick, go ahead. That's fair. He had medication overages, but the overzealousness that was involved in a New York regulator that was trying to become the hanging judge, the Judge Roy Bean of racing. It was one individual that was out to use him as a scapegoat and as a piñata for his own aggrandizement. And that's just a fact. And anybody that wants to argue him, come at me. I mean, this is a tremendous win for Dutrow, and he should be lauded for what he did to now for his second Breeders' Cup Classic win.
And you should end any sentence talking about Dutrow with Babe, I think. Yeah, Babe. Yeah.
Well, there's two Babes.
I heard him say that 3 times yesterday.
Well, there was the Babe double, because Ravelli is a Babe guy, too. Ravelli ends sentences with Babe. So he and I were walking after the turf sprint. We were walking to the press conference, and I heard him say to some reporter, he used Babe. And I said, oh, my God, it's the Babe double.
Very good. All right, let's move on. Again, that was a nice win by White Barrio. You mentioned it, Irad Ortiz. Nice day for him, and he winds up with the Bill Shoemaker Award as the winning jockey at the Breeders' Cup this year. And I think I read it was his fifth time getting that honor, so that was nice. And we'll kind of go to the end and work our way back a little bit, get as far as we can. But the Breeders' Cup Sprint, Elite Power follows up, winning last year, one of the repeat victors this year, and looked good doing it. I put him on top. I really like Gunite, but I said I'm going to go a little bit with Elite Power over Gunite this weekend because I like the 6 furlongs for Elite Power, and Elite Power just looked phenomenal here. Capping what was also a very nice big weekend for Bill Mott, but Elite Power winning. We're watching the stretch run right here, winning the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Gunite runs second. Your thoughts?
He was terrific, and one, if you want to talk about a Breeders' Cup for an entity, in addition to Bill Mott and Irad Ortiz, how about the Breeders' Cup Saturday for Judmont?
Yeah,
Idiomatic wins the distaff. Elite Power wins, and that's strangely, with all the good fillies that Judmont has had, including the ones, of course, campaigned by Bobby Frankel. That's their first win in a distaff, which actually kind of surprised me. They've won plenty of filly and mare turf, but this sort of surprised me a little bit. But anyway, Judmont wins 2 races on their own, and Doc Chandler, from Mill Ridge, he bred No Ball. So it was a spectacular Judmont, Mill Ridge, Doc Chandler, troika on the day. Elite Power was brilliantly prepared. Bill Mott, all 6 of his runners came into this just in tremendous shape. Mott, 3 wins, just FYI, and obviously Cody's Wish and an incredible thriller to start the day. Here's Elite Power, Casa Creed third, Warlike Goddess had a little bit of trouble on that dirt and sort of never really put her big run in. But overall, Mott with a spectacular 2 days, and Elite Power goes off to the shed row and is going to, or to the breeding shed, and should be a very popular sire for Judmont. And by the way, I'm also on this topic of a big weekend. 3 wins on the day for Curlin, huge for Hillendale. Oh,
it's also a very nice weekend for Justify, certainly on Friday.
Well, Justify. Out of control.
Yeah, that's great. Turf Sprint was the race before. We've already kind of alluded to it with No Balls getting it done. Nice run there. But I will note, Big Invasion, the Dean Reeves, Christophe Clement runner, nice late run to just miss, coming up for second. Aesop's Fable comes in from Europe, runs third. Living the Dream runs fourth in here. But again, No Balls, the Larry Ravelli runner, coming out of a win at Colonial. And the ungraded DeHaas follows up and provides a little bit of a price on the day for folks at $26. Your thoughts on the sprint?
Well, what was interesting, and I mentioned that Lee and I happened to bet No Balls, just strictly doing some board watching. This was a horse that was getting plenty of attention all during the week. Every handicapping conversation, No Balls kept coming up. The best part of this, and John White made him 6-1. But I mean, the beauty of these big fields, and one of the things you like about weekends like Breeders' Cup is horses get lost on the board.
Yeah.
And at 12-1, that he was the right price to be playing with. That the story here is the tremendous ride by Gerardo Corrales, who is a young rider that has gotten plenty of notice in Mid-American racing, and a lot of savvy trainers have been using him, and that's always a good indication when you're watching a region of the country and you see certain horsemen climbing on board and using a young rider. If you watch the replay of this, there's a point on the backstretch where Corrales has a choice to either continue staying close to the back end of the first flight or letting them go. There's about 5 or 6 horses. I'm going to guess in that first flight that he is probably sitting at that point 5th or fifth, sixth, or seventh. And Corrales makes a very good decision. Rather than stay up on that pace, he backed off of it ever so slightly. And then at the same time, he also maintained, his space. And he got a little bit lucky holding the inside when Live in the Dream started to tire and basically starts to get out in the stretch. And Corrales has edged up at that point to be in a position to dart up the rail. It was a masterful ride. And, you got to watch these races replays 3-4 times, to pick up a lot of nuances. And I happened to, really watch the replay the first time while we were up, having the press conference after the race. And it became obvious that Corrales really made the difference. And it was just enough to hold off, as you mentioned. Yeah. Here came Big Invasion, comes calling with Rosario. I know some people. I tell you, people have made up their mind that Joel Rosario's the worst jockey in the history of 2023, and every decision that Joel makes is a bad one, and that he's cost everybody millions of dollars. That he's taking money out of everybody. I've never seen a guy that has gotten to be so much of a lightning rod for criticism. It's bizarre.
He really has. It was kind of funny. I noticed that 2 or 3 months ago myself. You out there on Twitter, a guy who rides at the level he does is taking a lot of smoke over the last few months. But that was a nice ride to just miss with Big Invasion. All right, let's move to Breeders' Cup Turf. As I said earlier, I was going to take a little shot with Bolshoi Ballet off the win in the Sword Dancer. That one winds up scratching. So I scratched into the eventual winner, Auguste Rodin. I had Up to the Mark right underneath, and I had Warlike Goddess in the third spot after the scratches. And I wound up right with the first two. Auguste Rodin, the number 5 horse, as we watched the replay at 5-2 is the favorite. Up to the Mark runs a good second at 3-1. You mentioned it earlier. Warlike Goddess is the number 13, so you can see the chicklets there. She winds up a disappointing 7th, but as you noted, maybe a little traffic coming over the dirt, but even the chart here, the short comments say altered upper stretch traffic at the 16th, so Warlike Goddess has a little bit of traffic, but not Auguste Rodin. Gets it done by 3/4 of a length over. A nice run from Up to the Mark coming out of that really spectacular win in the Turf Mile at Keeneland. Your thoughts on the Turf?
This is a race I've got to watch again, to be honest, Seth. And from what I sort of heard chatter wise, and I got to watch it again. I guess Christian DeMuro. I guess he made a bad decision in terms of where he was with Shahryar. That may have cost him at least second, but he vacated a spot that Ryan Moore then took up, and it was perfect. It's kind of a perfect confluence to allow Rodin and Moore to move, and I'm going to have to watch it a couple of more times. In terms of performances, I don't know. Up to the Mark. The decision to run in this race instead of the Turf, it's hard to criticize. Yeah, it's hard to criticize. I mean, they finished second, and it took a little bit of magic out of a hat by Ryan Moore, and having that spot open for him. But still, tonight can't criticize running second in a race like this. He and Casa Creed, obviously, and No Balls were the ones that performed best against the invading Euro. So, Auguste Rodin was the horse that everybody expected. The horse goes off as the 5-2 favorite, and he wins.
Breeders' Cup Distaff, you would have to think this is one of the races on the day that may have stamped an Eclipse winner in Idiomatic. I went with Clairiere, and the aforementioned Joe Rosario does get stuck here. And this is one I want to go back and watch the head on, because I want to see, if he could have he kind of thinks about going out and then really can't go out. So Clairiere gets kind of in a jam here, and unfortunately winds up fourth because of it. But Idiomatic very nicely gets it done at 9-5, randomized second, Latavita third, and Clairiere, the number 9 here as they're coming down the stretch, runs fourth. I thought here she was in a great spot, Clairiere, but again, just kind of gets jammed up late and can't get through. But the winner, Idiomatic, again, comes out of wins in the Spinster most recently, and we saw her up at Saratoga in the Personal Ensign. So a pretty nice late season triple for that one, getting it done here. Your thoughts on the distaff?
I picked Clairiere as well, and I picked Idiomatic second. And to me, it seemed like it was one or the other. And I didn't think there were. I approached a lot of the races like that personally, Seth, and it sort of played out that way. Idiomatic had a tremendous season. And she's your obviously your older filly and mare champion. I don't think it mattered when Clairiere got out or didn't get out. Idiomatic was winning the race, and Randomized was second. Everybody else was not I won't say not competitive, but they weren't. Nobody else was winning. It came down to Idiomatic and Randomized, and once again this year we had a terrific distaff. Last year was the most exciting race of the Cup. This one, another Curlin, the Juddmonte Homebred. A lot to like about this performance, no doubt. And Linda Vita, I know. In fact, can't wait to talk to Nick Camero. Nick was going to make Linda Vita his, sort of underneath key horse in this spot. So I'm going to guess that Nick did well. This was $150 trifecta for $1, and it was very much reachable. I tried to use Desert Dawn as the underneath horse, and she ran okay. But it's nice. Distaff is always good.
Yeah, it was, and again, good addition again this year with some powerhouse fillies and mares in there. Well, since you were with Lee, because I was going to text him at the end of the day, but I'm sure he got plenty of texts because I put Casa Creed on top, and I thought Casa Creed ran great. So I just wanted to pat him on the back a little bit and tell him that. But it winds up to be, we'll see the number 14, Master of the Seas, get it done for Charlie Appleby. Maj runs second, the number 6 horse in here coming out of the win in the QE2. But number 3, Casa Creed, I'll tell you, at the top of the stretch, I thought he had the momentum. I thought he was in a great spot, and he just couldn't kind of sustain and keep it going to go by the other two late. Gina Romantica runs 4th in here. So it is Master of the Seas getting it done. But again, the number 3, Casa Creed, as we see, will make a night. Oh, geez, he's making a great. It looks like he has the momentum and he's going to get going, but winds up 3rd in here. Your thoughts on the Breeders' Cup Mile?
Well, as I said, I just spent all day Friday after we finished the show, met up with Lee and spent the whole day with him. We had a ball on Friday. It was so nice to relax that way. And then, yesterday, he had his son and his son's girlfriend and Amy was with him. And so the 5 of us shared the day. And, you wait and you anticipate, and it's a fun feeling when you're anticipating participation in a spot like that. And what can you say about a 7-year-old horse that is at the top of his powers and beat every other North American entrant. Godolphin is churning out these horses, like Xerox copies. It's unbelievable. And they, ran a huge race, ran his race, got beat half a length for everything. And that's it. Now they got to make some decisions about, they may go to Hong Kong. He's been invited to the Hong Kong Mile. Lee's got to entertain some offers from international interests that are, want to stand him as a stallion. or might bring him back again and have another go at it, have another campaign with him at 8. Lee's had so much fun with this horse, and I thought he was terrific. Master of the Seas, the outside one lesson we keep learning at Breeders' Cups at Santa Anita: don't be afraid of betting the 14 horse, and the horse that's why. Don't. Rick Hammerly talks about this all the time on the show with me. Don't ever let the post deter you. A good horse, it can overcome. In most scenarios, if the horse is going to be the best on the day, they'll overcome the post. And he's another good example. Last time we were here, Karakantai won from the 14. So good big effort, and Maj ran great too.
And I agree on the post position. I'll say when I'm handicapping during the because I had a number of horses, at least in my mix and outside post positions, and I'll note post position isn't great, but you don't want to make the decision based a horse you like and say, I'm going to take them out because of the post position, and then they do run big, and then you're really kicking yourself after the race, particularly if you get a little bit of a price. So I'll put them in there and just note they're going to have to overcome a little something, but it's possible. Yeah. Fifth race yesterday, Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint, and again, it was the repeater, Goodnight Olive, with a nice performance. And again, Irod Ortiz on board, one of his victories on a big day for him. Yuguri, as the race was kind of getting late and going into the gate, I didn't have Yuguri in my picks originally, but I looked up at the 26-1 and I thought, you know what? She could be a little bit live in here. And she winds up completing what wound up to be a $70 exacta under the favorite. Three Witches runs third. Society runs fourth in here. Your thoughts on the Filly and Mare Sprint with Goodnight Olive repeating?
No, she traveled, every step. It was obvious that she was the winner. There's nothing to say. Chad had her absolutely perfect. She was a little less perfect than she was last year, but this was a trouncing.
Yeah, it was a nice performance that, again, you would think would be one of the eclipse-defining moments on the day. Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf. I have to admit, I didn't have Inspiral in my mix. And I said when I handicapped, I might regret that. As it turned out, I did. Inspiral certainly looked very good. I used Warm Heart, however, and I'll tell you, 10 strikes from the wire. I thought I was going to get my 4-1 winner home there. Moira, the Canadian Invader, runs third. Win Maryland runs fourth. So 6 Inspiral getting it done over number 2. Warm Heart in here. Your thoughts in the Filly and Mare Turf?
My thoughts are what
was I thinking?
What you got to? I'm shocked, frankly. This is one of the nicest horses in the world.
Yeah,
and you had to at least respect. I actually, you talk about Warm Heart. I was coolish on Warm Heart, and so that kind of hurt the things I was trying to do underneath, because I wanted to sort of be. I was against her. I was against With the Moonlight. But anyway, John Gosden, when he, for those that don't realize it, John Gosden used to train at Santa Anita early in his career. He knows exactly what kind of horse to bring to Breeders' Cup, and particularly what kind of horses to bring to Breeders' Cup to Santa Anita. So if John Gosden is coming here, he's coming here with intent and very serious. Him, Andre Fogg, Dermot Weld, when those guys have shown up at this event, those are horses that you absolutely are demanding that you include or respect at the very least. Aidan O'Brien, it's a little bit different because they've got this sweeping, gigantic operation, and they throw a lot of spaghetti at the wall. And some of it, happens to be, very nice spaghetti, but they're a little bit different. But when Gosden shows up, he means business, and Dettori gets a win. I mean, that's one part of the weekend, actually. Yes, there were plenty of repeat type winners, but there were also the things were spread around pretty good. Buick, and Moore, and the Tory. Almost everybody got a win.
And Dettori, a fun story, just kind of puts the retirement on hold. And why not? He's still winning at the top level. So I totally get it. Gets the win there. And in my defense in Spiral, never been the distance. And I was kind of looking at, as I said when I handicapped, I may be making a huge mistake. But on the distance, I took a little shot. And I was only 6 inches away from being correct there, but it was a good performance. And finally, yesterday, Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, one of the good stories on the day, obviously, with Cody's Wish going out with a win. We've all been familiar with this year with the story, and to have the story horse be a super talented horse as well has worked out to be a lot of fun. Came out of the win in the Vosburg. With a number that was maybe a little bit light. People were kind of thinking maybe the horse is vulnerable. I thought Zozos might steal it. I don't know what happened there, but Cody's Wish got it done. And as I say, fun story on the afternoon. Junior Alvarado on board. Bill Mott, another part of his big weekend. Your thoughts in the Dirt Mile?
Wow, this was really exciting, and it was a great way to start the Breeders' Cup portion of Saturday. Obviously, it's a fairy tale. An insane fairy tale. I mean, you cannot make up what this horse. It really is crazy.
Yeah.
And it just, bewildering about latching onto a story and a horse and a boy that is so courageous. A family that is just incredible. Wednesday night we had the National Turf Riders and Broadcasters award dinner and at the Altadena Town and Country Club, which was lovely, and we acknowledged the Cody, Team Cody, and they were there, and it's so special, the Dormans, and I don't know what else to say. I mean, obviously, that inquiry and National Treasure. Stafford was sitting right behind us the weekend. And we were talking about it. I asked him afterward. I said, that's a encouraging performance from National Treasure. He said it is. He was happy with it. I said, you're going to go to the Malibu, and I guess he's thinking a different route for National Treasure. He's going to keep him two turning, and he's got Hijazi. He is going to pick it for the Malibu. Jazzy won that allowance race, unfortunately on Friday when Buck Buzz got hurt. But anyway, that was an absolute thrilling race. And Cody's Wish looked spectacular here all week, and he was all puffed up, and you knew he was going to run. These horses that are leaving the stage that are being retired. They're geared up to run the race of their life. And he ran another bang-up race and leads the stage, at a high note. I mean, he got 107 buyer, Elite Power 111 buyer, and the inquiry, there was no reason to take the horse down. I know people are. I saw somebody say, it turns out Pratt isn't a good guy. Do these people understand? Do you understand what these guys are trying to do out there on these horses? Flavian Pratt. The reason Flavian Pratt comes out three paths to encounter Cody's Wish is because if he doesn't, Cody's Wish is going to go right on by because National Treasure is not going to see him. He's not going to eyeball him. The horse is going to, you bring the horse out so that he sees that there's an oncoming foe and he responds. That's how you ride a horse in a race. And everything that happens thereafter is just race riding. There was that horse was never coming down. I mean, not to mention, people would have burned the building down.
They took a long look, but I think that was just because it was the Breeders' Cup. You gotta have the look. But yeah, there wasn't enough there, and I think you're right. There would have been I think people would have been a little bit upset with the story behind it. Steve, you got to wrap it up. But any overall thoughts on Friday and the juveniles? What note was notable to me? I mentioned earlier, Justify a good day with just FYI and Hard to Justify. You had the European trainers bookending the day, but you had the New York trainers, Chad Brown, Todd Fletcher, Bill Mott in the middle of the day. And I mentioned Frankie Dettori riding at the top of the game. John Velasquez on fierceness. He just is riding very, very well. But again, thoughts on Friday?
Well, Friday itself also was had a formful feel to it. Just FYI, that was a nice number to get 7-1 on her. Yeah. You mentioned, if you're going to mention New York trainers, what about George Abro with Jody's Pride? Some people were saying, why is he bringing her out? Oh, to finish second in the juvenile fillies. So that was the favorite. That Big Ed ran a terrific race in the juvenile. The juvenile, you had the horses finish 1, 2, 3, the Europeans, so that sort of set the tone for the weekend. It's hard to justify, and She Feels Pretty. That was a race that felt like it was Chad or Cherie, and they both, ran terrific races. She Feels Pretty was third. You get to the dirt race, Fierceness. I'm sorry, we all blew it. There was next to nobody. I'm sure there's people watching that are saying, "Well, I like Fierceness." After that, fiasco in the Champagne, everybody abandoned ship, and obviously abandoned ship way too early. Obviously, you get to write off that performance to the wet track. If you haven't heard, he comes back with 105 buyers. It's one of the best juvenile performances in years. So here's Forte 2.0, Rapoli and Fletcher, back with a juvenile winner and I suppose the juvenile champion. That was a surprise. It's also a big win for City of Light. A very big win. I was sitting right by Michael McCarthy. That's a terrific win for City of Light. Kind of elevates him. He's been kind of looking for a horse like this as a stallion. And then how about, we'll close it out, in the juvenile turf, how about Aiden O'Brien? He loses River Tiber, who was going to be the favorite in the juvenile turf, to a scratch by the veterinarians that put O'Brien on tilt, and then he still finishes 1-2 in the race.
And again, capping off a nice Friday as well. How long are you going to stick out there and do the radio show with recaps this week?
2 more days. We'll be here Monday and Tuesday for recapping, and it's going to be a little tough I'm going to see some long faces from the California trainers because there's none to. Last time we were here, there was a bunch: Peter Urton and Stafford and Mandela. We had. So I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to create a way to make them smile, find some board hits and some fourth place finishers and make them feel good about themselves. But still nice to be here to kind of wrap things up rather than come running. The people were getting on the red eyes last night. My red eye days are long over. I took the extra hour we got last night and slept.
I don't blame you. 2
more days. I want to mention that we got a channel change coming up on Wednesday. For those of you on Sirius XM, we will move to Sirius 162 and to XM 207 and online channel 999. So 2 more days at our it's the longest time we've ever been on the same channels. We've probably been close to 10 years on 201 and 219. But Sirius 162, XM 207, online 999. That starts on Wednesday.
I've been a fan since it was like you and JJ on the internet when you were guesting on his show way back when. So the
show was always on. It was always on Sirius XM at that point. When I joined in November of 2005, they had been on since July.
Okay,
is when After Racers as an entity debuted in July of 2005, and I was invited to join as a handicapper in November of 2005, and then when I went down there at Thanksgiving that year and got to meet JJ and John Parada, they invited me to be a co-host, and that was it. Been there ever since, and then it became, and my name got put on it in 2007, and it's hard to believe, and thankful every day.
Then the rest is history, and I have told you many times, clearly you are built for this because you've done a great job right from the beginning. Steve, speaking of great jobs, great job this morning. We always appreciate it. The live boots on the ground visit from the Breeders' Cup. The Breeders' Cup. And Tina is out there. If she is, say hello to her.
No, Tina might be listening at home in Greenwich. She's got leads to get off the lawn.
I thought Dino said he saw her picture on social media, so I was going with that, but he may have been looking at an old one. Yeah.
He's looking at one from 2009, I think.
That could be. All right, Steve, we'll let you go. And again, we'll be tuned in over the next week or so for some nice recap action on the stakes races and whatnot. Travel safe. We'll talk again.
Seth, I appreciate it. Hope everybody cashed some tickets. It's always a challenge. Sometimes you're licking wounds. Sometimes you're
before you go, I think we should both. You noted it on Twitter, but I had a couple of the races and ran first, third with an exacta play in one of mine. Otherwise, it would have been okay. But Dick Powell had that nice little turf pick 3 tossed out on Friday. That was a good call by Dick.
Dick put a play. The companion this year, we only had about 3 tickets that cashed. We had a lot of winners picked.
Yeah.
But Dick had the best. Dick gave out basically a $700 for tiny money. Dick gave out the $3 pick 3 on Friday with those 3 juvenile turf races, and it was good for just about $700.
Yeah.
So great job by Dick. Listen, Dick's one of the great opinions in all of punditry and analysis, and one of the great institutional knowledges of the game.
He really is.
A tremendous asset. He's been on the show now as a regular for probably about 5-6 years now. He's been a tremendous asset, no doubt.
Yeah, Dick Powell, essentially our colleague here on the network for years and years. And I get to talk to him more up at Saratoga than anywhere else. But you're right, has that institutional kind of memory and knowledge of the game that's always fun to listen to and hear his opinions. But always fun to listen to your opinions too. So we'll send you away and alert people again to tune in this week for some nice Breeders' Cup follow-up action. Steve, thanks.
Seth, appreciate it.
Steve Byk, again, live from Santa Anita. I'll wrap it up here because I'm looking at my monitor up there, and the pregame for NYRA has started. So we'll get you to that with some ideas. I'll be back in that's a great question because normally I say about 12:30 or so. But today, first post at Aqueduct is 12:20. So we'll be back 12:10, 12:15 to kind of kick off OTB Live. I almost said Racing Across America again because it's right behind me. But OTB Live for Sunday afternoon. Again, we'll be back in about an hour or so to kick it off. And again, we noted they're kicking off with an earlier post time out at Finger Lakes. And as I said, other venues are doing it as well. With the clocks changing last night, things get darker earlier. And so there will be earlier post times. And again, as at Aqueduct today, they kick off at 12:20. So be back in about an hour or so with that. And I just wanted to touch on one other thing before we go. As I say, I pulled up the BCBC betting challenge. And if you're not familiar, it's one of these nationally prominent handicapping contests. You have to either buy in or win your way in for a $10,000 entry. $2,500 goes to the prize pool, and you play with $7,500. Live money. Whatever you make, you keep at the end. But they start with $7,500. So again, the winner yesterday, Sean Borman, he turned his $7,500 into $230,000. Again, with a big shot on the winning exacta with Elite Power and Gunite. And then the prize, I think the top prize is another $300 and some. So he winds up with well over $500,000. But I wanted to mention our friend Marshall Graham. He was a good 11th in here. I started with $7,500. He got up to $65,000. That's solid. I also wanted to tout local product, and we've had him on the show. Matt Vejvolji winds up with 36,000 in his 27th. And Paul Halloran, who we've had on the show, part of that HHH podcast. We had Paul on a couple times this summer up at Saratoga, 21,000. So that was a good performance as well. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. But again, we'll be back in about an hour or so, OTB Live for a Sunday afternoon. So we'll see you then.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.